Guys, it's Maymay, and I've been showing you these cards this week, which I think are super fun. And I want to show you how I got this look, this kind of watercolor painterly look using Oxide inks. I actually did two different kinds. You can see that this wreath is very specifically painted. It's not messy looking. And you can see how these hollies are kind of messy and kind of painterly. People ask me what that means, but you know, whenever you see somebody that does watercolor and they have kind of the loose watercolor look, that's what these get. And these have some glitter and sparkle. I'm going to show you how I did all that, including this one. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing is I'm using some watercolor paper, which you don't have to do, but I really like the way the ink moves on the watercolor paper. I think it works really well, and I'm going to use my Misty for this, but the reason I am is because I have lined up all of these little stamps this is from Ministry Appreciation, and then this one is from Baubles and Bling, the sentiments that I'm using. So I've lined them all up together, so it'll say, "For our pastor, sending you happiness only Christmas can bring." I think that's cute. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp this. I'll turn it this way so you can see in the camera, and I'm going to stamp it with some VersaFine Onyx Black. The reason is, so this ink works well with watercolor. So does the Nuvo Hybrid. But I find that on this watercolor paper, this really rich VersaFine ink will stamp really well on the watercolor paper. And if I accidentally get water on it while I'm playing with the oxides, it won't matter because it won't move. And see how I missed some there? I'm glad I did it this way. Now I can go back and use my Misty to help line this up and get that inked really well right in the middle. That can sometimes happen when you're mixing up a lot of stamps. You know, you get some different heights and different variations, but now we got it all nice and clear. All right, so I'm going to move this out of the way because that's all I wanted to do was stamp my sentiment on there. And the cool thing is I can do this over and over again by just changing this word out and leaving everything where it is. All right, now then, on to the fun little stamping. So now I'm getting into the stamp set that's called Deck the Halls. This is the set that's really for Christmas planners, but it has these cute, tiny little ornaments and bling and holly and berries and all this good stuff. And so I'm utilizing it as well. And I've been using it a lot lately, by the way. So that's where these little guys come from. And I'm going to use a couple of inks. I'm going to use Candied Apple and I'm going to use Lucky Clover. So what I have done is I've loaded my little berries and two of the holly leaves up. And now I'm just going to decorate around this any old way I want. So, inking up this holly berry, which I have used, not holly berry, but the holly leaf, I have used these so much. I'm just going to come in and anywhere I want to have some little leaves, I'm going to stamp around this using the Oxide ink. I think it's cute to kind of go all the way around, and I love to mix the colors. Then I'm going to take a smaller one of the leaves and kind of fill in between. Something like that. And then maybe one over here. So now I'm going to take the little berries, I'm going to ink those up, and then just kind of in this area to add some red here, and then also over here inside of these guys. I think that's cute to add that little look. And then I'm going to show you what I did to get the painterly look. So you're going to need a water brush, and this is just a Crayola water brush that I've had forever in my stash. I picked it up at Walmart some time ago, and I use this. What I like to do is take a paper towel, get one here for us, and just wad this up in my hand. And I want to get this brush really wet till it's kind of like beading up on the edge, okay? Then everywhere I stamp with the Oxide ink, I'm going to tap the edge. The more liquid I tap, the more loose or the more blurred my image is going to get. Now this is important. You can't tap onto the green and then tap straight onto the holly berry because they will blend together. The colors will start to mix, okay? So I've cleaned my brush off and now I can tap on the holly berries. And I'm just wanting to get the color to kind of bleed. This is going to give me that painterly look in the background. Let me turn it this way where I can get to this side. I'm going to clean that off again. And I'm going to go right here into the green, and I'm just tapping and slightly squeezing my brush to get water on those edges of the images just to get it to move. I love the loose kind of deconstructed look of watercolor, but I'm a terrible watercolorist, and I thought, I wonder if I could get the same look by doing this. Now, I understand some of you are a purist and you loved this card before I did the watercolor blurring, and I totally get that. And if you do, this works the same way. You can just let the ink dry and not get it wet, and it will be just fine. But I thought this would be cool to kind of give us a different kind of blurry look. Let me bring this to the camera so you can see what we have done here. So see how we've just kind of watercolor blurred that out. And you could stop right there. You could leave it just like that. We're going to do another step, but I need to let this dry. So while this is drying, by the way, you could also heat set this if you wanted to. While this is drying, let's make that little wreath. So if you saw my video yesterday, my live video that I did a wreath with you using a different stamp set. It's the same process that I'm going to use today, but I want to show you how I'm going to watercolor it so easily. Okay, so here we go. Circle using a 2-inch circle punch. That's all I did there, and I've used that over and over again. Now back to our little hollies, and here's how I did this holly wreath. Very much like the one we did yesterday. So here we go. Not yesterday. It would have been yesterday for me, but Thursday for you guys. So around the outside edge, I'm going to stamp these leaves just sporadically, kind of in a little rhythm around the edge, lining the edge of the holly berry up with my circle. And I'm going to do this all the way around. I tend to get a little fast and not stamp fully, so take your time on this. If you're like me and you tend to get a little fast, make sure you get a good solid stamp. You can see how I missed the edge of that one. It's because I get too fast and I got to slow down a little bit. So there's my first layer of leaves. Now I'm going to come to the inside using that same leaf, and I'm going to kind of offset but stamp where the other one is, if that makes sense. Kind of off from where the first one is, but using it as my guide for this one. And see what I mean by that? They're not lined up, like I'm not lining the stems up. I'm just offsetting them slightly. The other thing is, if you get too fast or too quick, you take a chance of dropping your little stamp. So try not to do that. I tend to do that. I get too fast. I like instant gratification, so I want this to like hurry, right? So take your time. And I'm going to stop at that for now, and I'm going to use the smaller one to fill in. So here's the smaller little leaf. So I'm going to ink it up. And then in between these sections, I'm going to come in and stamp with the smaller one to kind of fill in anywhere that there's a hole between leaves. Something like that. That's pretty good. I think that looks nice so far. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the berries and I'm going to fill in anywhere I think I need some color. So I'm just going to ink this, and anywhere I want to, I kind of want to fill in some little holes. So here's a little hole there. So I can go there and then here. And what these will do is these little berries will be where I come back later and put in my glitter. Now let me say this to you. I'm going to watercolor this, and if you're afraid you might blend your watercolors together, then you might want to wait and stamp your berries after you've watercolored the green. I'm going to be real careful and not worry too much about that. You'll see what I mean in just a second. And I just keep adding until I think it looks good. Whatever works for your eye. That looks good to me. Okay, now if your pencil mark is showing, you want to erase it at this point. If it is, mine's not showing too bad. I'm going to come right here and maybe get rid of some of this. It's a little dark. Make sure your eraser's clean. You don't want to smear it. Something like that. That's enough for me. All right, now to the water brush. So I'm going to actually use the ink to watercolor. If I just tap the edge of that ink inside of that leaf, I'm picking up enough color to color the leaf, and I don't lose the shape and I don't lose the design of the leaf. It's really kind of neat. It's kind of like paint by numbers, because all you have to do is activate the ink and it does the work for you. You have probably seen, there's these books out there. I remember when I was a kid, different gift shops would sell these books where you just needed a water brush and the ink was already loaded. So all you had to do was go through and put water into the spot, and the color would then activate and watercolor. And that's exactly what this is doing. I think it's really cool. I actually had hoped that you could send a card to someone and let them watercolor it, but I did find that over time these inks dry to a state where you can't move them with water. So that was a little sad. I did try that. I did a little test to see if that would work. So I thought, how cool would that be if you could send a card to like your grandchild and he could color it or she could color it? Well, that'd be neat. But they do eventually dry to where they don't move. But I'm just going to run through, and it's really neat. Like I'm not having to go back and forth with ink. I'm not having to pick any up off of a block. I'm not having to color with a marker first and then blend it out. It just works kind of automatically. So you can see now how all the little leaves are watercolored, and it was so easy, and all I used was one water brush, and I think that's awesome. Now for the berries, I did not watercolor them. I'm going in with some Nuvo crystal drops. These are the glitter drops in Ruby Slippers, and I'm just putting in some red berries. And I think that just kind of gives me a good guide for where to put everything. I think it's cute. So there you can see those berries. I went heavier with my berries on this one. I like to play around a little bit and see. I like how full these berries are, so I think that's super cute. Now I'm going to let the watercolor and the berries dry, and that one will be ready to use on the front of a card. Now we're going to go back and I'm going to do a little more definition, because once we wet these images, they kind of bleed out and we lose some of the definition. And on this particular card, I used the same ink color to do that. On this one, I'm going to do it in black so you can see the difference, and I think it'll make more sense in the camera if I do it in the black. So I'm going to ink up the same image that I used, okay, and going right where I stamped it. Now you're going to want to get over the top. You're going to want to try to stamp almost exactly where you did the first time. And when you do that, can you see how you get the definition of the shape and the color behind it, kind of the watercolor look behind it? Now, like I said, in the card I just showed you, I did that with the same ink color with the Lucky Clover color. And it's pretty to do it that way too, but I think this looks neat because it looks like the watercolor has kind of bled out of the lines. Now, you do want to try to stamp as close to where the first one was as possible. Otherwise, it'll just look a little messy. But if you like messy, do messy. You'll do a better job because you're going to get your head over the top, where I'm not, but it'll look beautiful when you do it. Same thing with the berries. I'm going to go tap into the black, and then right where I put those berries, I'm going to ink on top of that. Now you could stamp all of this in black and then watercolor it. I just think it's kind of cool to let the stamped image do the work for you. Look how cool that looks. Looks like we painstakingly watercolored that, and so you can see the difference. Okay, the top card I did by just what I showed you, but instead of stamping it with black, I went back with the same green and stamped. And this one, I went back and stamped it with the black. I think I like this one better, actually. This is my favorite now. So there you go. There's that look for a card front. Oh, and let's put some glitter in there. So next I'm going to take some Nuvo glitter in, what color is this one? Emerald City. And I'm just going to come inside those leaves and just glitter. And I'm just patting it on. This will dry dimensional, so the lower you get it, the less dimension. Like I'm just patting it into place, and it will dry all inside those leaves and give us some little glittery holly leaves. Then again with the red for the berries, and again, this time I'm just going to kind of rub that glitter in. I just want the shine, but I don't want to lose the image. Another little touch I did to this one, and I would do this before you glitter it so you don't get your hand in it, but I forgot to show you, and I wanted to show you this. I took my white Jelly Roll pen, and just in some of the thicker places of the letter, I did some highlighting just by putting some white kind of dash lines inside the letters. And you may have to do this you may have to go back over it a couple times because it may kind of sink into your black ink, but that's okay. You can do it one time, let it dry, and then go back over it. And I think that looks pretty cool. You can really see that on this card. See how I have the little white dashes in there, and it kind of looks glistening. So there you go. If you're a watercolorist, this is probably not the technique for you, but if you're like me and you struggle with watercolor, it's kind of neat to be able to get the look of spending meticulous time watercoloring without. I really like that. I hope this works for you guys, and I can't wait to see what you recreate with the looks of these techniques. So share it with us over on our Facebook group, which is called Maymay Made It, and so did I. Thanks so much for watching today, guys. Have a great weekend. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.